Welcome, people of the internet. My name is JD Shadow, and Jim's definitely Sterling's son, daughter. What do we call this person anymore? The commentator had to go there, right? So the latest Jimquisition is them ranting about the new Monkey Island game and how people got so uptight about the art style that they harassed creator Ron Gilbert to the point where he temporarily shut down his update blog due to the outcry. Now, I say this because Nintendo Life is reported in the blog has came back online now. I have not confirmed this myself yet. Now, this part of the Jimquisition is easy to agree with, but leave it to Jim to make not only a comparison that we'll get to in a moment, to also try to use such odd language in order to make it seem like they are blaming the entirety of the gaming community, while at the same time somehow being able to get away with claiming that they were not. Instead, this was a small, albeit loud subsection of the community that the majority of the gaming community wish wasn't around and consistently calls out, even when Jim repeatedly claims that gamers don't want Ubisoft to pay for their misdeeds, so much so that Jim has to go all the way back and reference an article from May of 2021 to prove their case when a letter came out in December of that year that admitted to not doing enough and made some promises to change things. Now, the issue with Ubisoft has not been brought up since then, besides to make reference to it in articles about the company staying independent in the wave of consolidation. In short, Jim would not get any argument from the majority of gamers on this point. The problems Gilbert had to go through was nothing short of dumb and stupid and abhorrent. He should have never had to put up with that. And thank goodness, if it turns out that he has become willing to post updates online again, that he had decided to not feed the trolls. But in Jim's case, then came a weird insertion. In the middle of all of this rant came an odd rant about, of all things, the new design of Cammy White in Street Fighter 6. As you know, Cammy's new design has her own a pair of low-cut pants. Now, before I go any further, let me remind you of a few things. One, there is some things floating around that the original traditional costume we all know Cammy to have will be in the game at day one, though as of the time I'm recording this, no official word has been given yet. It does seem like there's not much to worry about there. Secondly, there's no indication yet that Capcom made the different design because of any corporate pressure or the quote-unquote reset era crowd. You know who I'm talking about. Even though we do know these people exist, yes they do, Capcom right now didn't give the indication that they were bowing the knee and they were doing with Cammy what NetherRealm Studios did with all their female fighters in Mortal Kombat 11. You remember what happened there, right? Yeah, of course you did. But Jim obviously hasn't, because they are going into a rant in the middle of a subject that had nothing to do with this subject about people complaining about Cammy's change of attire. Now, first off, Jim, who's doing this? This has become a major problem with these rants. Yes, Jim will dox anyone who dares to call them out on Twitter, and yes, that quote tweet stuff gets old real fast because they know the cult fan base will attack anyone they quote tweet, but whenever they mention something in their videos, there's zero evidence of any of this actually happening. Yes, there are a few people that are upset about this change, but not for the reasons they're specifying. And if they are saying this because they want to get their horn on, they get called out immediately for it. This has been a major issue with Jim's videos. They will go on this entire gamers did X or Y thing, but never actually named the specific people or places they are talking about. Oh, don't forget the Jamers TM thing that they do as well. They did this with a Sony video a few weeks ago too, trying to smear gamers as not wanting to talk about difficult topics or wanting Jim to stop talking about it for 1 week and give it a damn rest. Not because they don't care about those subjects, but because it seems Jim's just pandering to the few friends on the inside that they have to protect no matter what. And they talk about this sort of subject every single damn week. see Zoe Quinn, a person who Jim will defend to the death and will always think that the only people that would ever dare have any problem with Zoe would be those that want to harass her for her gender, and not for how utterly toxic she is and how much of a disgraceful, pitiful excuse for a human being she really is. Just put purple hair and glasses on Amber Heard and you got Zoe Quinn. Just as Jim doesn't think that anyone who doesn't want to get their horn on with Cammy would ever have an issue with the change of costume if it isn't because Capcom decided to pander to people like Reset Era. And yes, Jim did touch on this sort of topic, and I'll get to this in a moment. The main reason why people are worried is not because of the horny men out there. It's because instead of showing women that they can dress however they want and not be subjected to such sexist comments, that they must cover up every last part of their bodies like they were in some third world country to be viewed as normal. They are not allowed to dress sexy or have any part of their body exposed. This was similar to what NetherRealm Studios did with Mortal Kombat 11. Their solution to a problem that they thought was more widespread than it was: cover up every single female to the point where you can't see any skin whatsoever. They went from one extreme in Mortal Kombat 9 to the extreme other with Mortal Kombat 11, insulting any sex-positive feminist that would be out there. For a character like Sonya Blade, maybe this would be a choice that the character makes, but for Mileena, a character who regularly uses her sex appeal as a weapon to lure men and women to her waiting teeth? Hell, one of the main villain characters of MK11, Centurion, was originally conceived to be a barefooted character, which would have made sense given the type of character she was and how she was designed. But lo and behold, the final cut of the game had her in boots. The only reason why? Because we needed to kink shame, and they were afraid those big bad foot fetishes would be in any way happy that they got even one character that didn't wear shoes in any way. And by God, we for some reason now think foot fetishes were worse than sin itself. So Capcom designing Cammy that way would give the impression this was happening here too. There were no big outcry that Cammy was too sexualized to the point that Capcom made a conscious change. They believed they got pushed by Reset Era and places like it and decided to make a change no sane person asked for. The costume change of Chun-Li is a bit jarring as well, but at the same time, she has worn the Chinese Kung Fu outfit before in the anime movies and the V series, so it would make sense to give her that here instead of the iconic blue dress and knee-high boots she's had for years, unless you count the Alpha series. As long as we get it in some way, we're fine with that. If it is something that fits Cammy's story in SF6, then yes, they can choose to do this if it makes sense to her character in the game. But not just because they want to pander to the other extreme, small section of those that don't want sex positivity to reign in the game. That move would actually be sexist and conservative as well. Plus, they might also see the outfit as boring, not unique. The OG outfit was unique and different, drew attention to character in one way or another. Then again, Jim showed that they know of this. Why else would they try to defend the buzzwords that they describe as too overused, and then try to say that no one should be angry at changes made to games for taste of decency? There is a chance that Jim meant changes made to games that feature choice words or choice storylines that might have been excusable in the time that was made, but not now. But not in the context of the current discussion. And if we want to talk about those things, we can, but it might have to be in a separate video because there's just too much we can get into, such as plot lines and those time periods and all that. But I'm sure Jim, from that quote, surely is aware of how people felt about Mortal Kombat 11's change to the female characters' outfits, and knew of the outcry. So preloading the response to those that would surely bring it up, see this rant you're listening to right now, would benefit them to get the defense out there rather than wait to see if it does come up. Jim, however, fails to even acknowledge that the issues people had with Mortal Kombat 11 was that they went too far the other way, and that the parallels are seemingly there with Cammy, though you can say the bare of midriff that she now has alongside the exposed calves. Remember, Mortal Kombat 11 also thought foot fetishes were the scum of the earth for some reason, could be a hopeful sign that Capcom wasn't thinking the way NRS did. And by the way, NRS was called out by Liana Kurtzner. Jim won't dare acknowledge that because we know who Liana also defended. Jim will only defend a woman if she also spouts the same opinions they do. Because buzzwords. Those words don't mean to us what you think they do, Jim. It seems you're more upset at people using words like woke and, oh good lord, social justice warrior, yes, you brought it up, so I get to use the term in the response, as a detriment to your arguments and those of your friends. If you really really want people to stop using those terms, then you might want to try to redefine them instead of always being so angry about them being used in ways you don't like. There are people on both sides of the political aisle that don't like that so much emphasis is being put to those that want the ultra side of those terms being the only reason anything gets changed, when the majority never ask for changes to be made. And those asking for those changes aren't racist or homophobic or sexist or any other is that you might think of. And even if men did see Cammy's outfit as sexy, or her as sexy, or women saw her as sexy and viewed her as waifu material due to the outfit, so what? It's not like men were suddenly not allowed to be attracted to females and vice versa. When did that become so taboo for men to be sexually attracted to a woman? Of course, there's a limit for everything, and men shouldn't act on those impulses in a way that's harassing or repugnant in any way. But I can assure you that the majority of men, and especially gamers, call a woman sexually attractive or pretty while also respecting the female for who she is and respect space, just as any man will respect anyone sexually attracted to them to give them the same respect. When did this become such a bad thing that we had to become so afraid of exposing anything? This is more of the media's fault than anyone else's. Just because a man finds you sexually attractive or decides to compliment your appearance doesn't necessarily mean that he wanted to get into your pants, ladies. Relax. A compliment can be just a compliment, and it's people like Jim and places like Reset Era making you read more into something than you need to. People are allowed to view Cammy or any other character physically attractive. That is not a sign that something wrong with the character, or that the character is there for the male gaze or anything like that, whatever that means. And if male characters in these games are being shown as bare-chested with little more than a loincloth to cover up the naughty bits that's happened as well in MK11, and therein lies the hypocrisy in that game in comparison to the female characters there, then it should be an equal playing field on that front. Because, unlike you, we are able to differentiate between someone that is complaining about a change of outfit because they wanted to use a bathroom for other purposes, and those that are complaining because they are worried that they are being told that they aren't allowed to feel or be sexy. You don't think any female gamer would be upset at a change to a female fighting character that would make the character less sexy? Newsflash, lesbians exist, first of all, and second, I can name a lot of female gamers that would look at Cammy's original look and find it to be all powerful because she isn't afraid to be sexy. And yes, we can separate the two and be able to call out the former as they should be while still acknowledging and agreeing with the latter. We are allowed to do that, just as we are able and allowed to think that something someone says or does in the game would never be condoned in real life, but we can still have fun in that world that is being presented. Why do you think that we can constantly defend games like the Grand Theft Auto series from those who seek to use that as a reason why people would commit crimes? And all those women that cosplayed as Cammy, did you ask any of them how they felt about the change? Yeah, it might not be any game-breaking impact on them, but did you ask if they thought the change was for the better? Or did they also think that there could be a chance that Capcom was pandering to the Reset Era crowd? This is a main issue you have with your videos, Jim. You seem to not be able to separate those two versions of the same argument, or realize that two people can hold the same opinion while not having the same reasons for why they have the same opinion. Ever hear about doing the right thing for all the wrong reasons, or the wrong thing for all the right reasons? It's possible for me to believe that Cammy should in some way have her OG outfit in the game, because it's such an iconic look for her that I couldn't see her wearing anything else, and that's part of what made Cammy who she is, and that she seems stronger in that outfit, while someone else would agree that she should have the OG outfit, but only because of them being nothing more than a poonhound, and I'm able to criticize that person for being such while still holding on to my belief. You keep doing this with all your videos, and this is why people tune out. It's not because of your transitioning or anything else of that nature. It's because you seem that everything is happening for only one reason and go with it, and getting all uptight and going on so many different tangents. And this entire rant about Cammy and those using buzzwords you want to be taboo for others to use are tangents, that it's hard for anyone to really think of what you're saying, to the point that it's hard to really provide you with a response or any answer to what it is you're bringing up. You think no one wants to talk about difficult topics, but they would if they weren't hit with such maniacal, militant language as you seem to want to use. And let's not get into the many times you use the F-bomb in your videos and never get called out on it by YouTube or never get demonetized for it by YouTube, yet we can't say even one instance of the F-bomb and not risk getting a whole entire channel being shut down. Let's think of that for a minute. And saw things as more with shades of gray, instead of everything only ever having the black and white sides you think every single difficult issue boils down to. You know why these issues are so sensitive and difficult to talk about? Listen to how you boil everything that might have 10 different perspectives down to allowing just 2 perspectives to exist and calling one of them bad, ignoring the other 8 or so that were ever out there that you could have explored, and try to understand why they even existed, and you'll get your answer. This idea of putting every perspective of these issues into 1 or 2 boxes and pretending that those 2 boxes are the only ones allowed to exist only seek to divide us as gamers. We come in all shapes and sizes, and our opinions of things vary and don't always fall into 1 or 2 categories, and that's why we continue to fight among each other when people do this. Jim tries to protect friends, it's kind of obvious, but we need to understand that just because, say, you want a Cammy's OG outfit to somehow be available doesn't necessarily mean that getting your jollies off to her has to be the only reason as to why you would want it, or that you agree or disagree with a social justice issue being addressed at a particular time. Just because you care about an issue doesn't mean you want to talk about it at every waking moment of the day. Who does that? Everyone needs to recharge, or they won't care all about an issue because they get too worn out of negativity of being talked about it all the time. Especially when someone is sitting there screaming obscenities at them because they believe that there can only be 2 boxes with the most extreme labels on them, and that any deviation in their beliefs is akin to belonging to the box of deplorables, when all they did was to disagree with what the semantics of what was being brought up, or the reason why they disagree with someone's take is what they said. Who wants to support anyone who always thinks the worst of someone whenever they try to give their very nuanced take? Especially when they can see right through the facade and figure out that it's insincere and only there to protect elitist ventures of their own when they try to say that they are working for us by going after the triple A's that have clearly failed us. And even more so when you realize that they have still failed to credit those very same gamers they blame for everything that has gone wrong when they spoke with their wallets the second they heard about the misdeeds of Activision Blizzard. If they really disrespected women, as Jim says gamers do all the time, maybe Jim should explain the mass exodus from WoW to Final Fantasy XIV, led by Asmongold, someone who people like Jim and certain Twitch streamers seem to want to vilify for whatever it is they got against him. I guess the TLDR of this is that Jim is tearing down a huge straw man argument. They are attempting to say in this case, gamers want the OG outfit back to whack off to, when that wasn't even their argument at all, and throwing the red herring on the buzzwords to keep people from being able to decipher what the straw man actually is. No one was actually saying they were horny on main for Cammy's OG outfit, but rather they were afraid an iconic look was swapped out because of a vocal minority that wants to tell women they aren't allowed to dress sexy or can't be both sexy and strong-willed at the same time. It's easier for Jim to win the argument with the straw man that they built instead of what the real complaint is. Then an incident similar to what happened with Mortal Kombat 11 was about to happen once more, as it also was argued with the change to Jill Valentine's outfit with the Resident Evil 3 remake. And yes, the same straw man argument was made there against that too. What NRS did with Mortal Kombat 11 was widely unpopular regardless of what side of the aisle you were on, and it would be foolish for Jim to defend them. They would get destroyed if they tried to directly say that they approved of those decisions. But Jim is seemingly in favor of those changes, but trying to not actually say they are for something that unpopular, and seems to want Capcom to make those same changes in their game. So instead of actually saying that and being upfront with it, they are instead applying a position to those that are calling out the change that those that called it out never actually made in expressing that position. Jim then goes into supposed buzzwords to try to confuse people before they are able to pick up on the actual strawman argument, thus the red herring. Those that like their content will no doubt hate the buzzwords, so they will not even think of checking anything Jim actually claimed, or to pick up about the comparison between what those that had any issue with Cammy's new attire actually were claiming and what they thought was actually going on, while hiding their supposed agenda with saying the buzzwords are cliche, when in reality it's an attempt to approve of something that was wildly unpopular in a roundabout, cowardly way, instead of actually being more upfront and bringing up the MK11 debacle head on. I think we all know how Jim would fare trying to defend such changes if they tried to say those changes were in any way positive for any gender, and how they would fare if they said that Capcom should go the same route, especially when they made a video decrying the Activision Blizzard diversity tool thing that no one was fooled by. Jim would be eaten alive if they tried to defend the way that females were treated in MK11 after they rightfully called out something that Clownfish TV, Sophia Norwitz, and The Quartering also came out against. Oh wait, I might not want to inform Jim that they agreed with undesirable channels or fan bases that might promote the unity Jim doesn't seem to want. Oh, and did I mention? Jim's fans are seemingly buying his misrepresentations, as now anyone who dares call out the change to Cammy's outfit is being automatically assumed that they are asking for the OG outfit back for unclean purposes. Not that it would be any of their business if they did anyway. And they never had to actually bring up the MK11 comparison, since Jim never uttered the name Mortal Kombat. Had they ever even uttered a word about how people felt about the MK11 stuff, by the way? And now you see why the things Jim says have to get some counter when they become so absolute and militant. Someone has to check Jim's rants when they do this stuff, and it's a shame because I, like others, supported Jim during the digital homicide debacle. How far have the mighty fallen? I guess the old adage is correct. You either died as the hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. For Jim, they are the latter now. And before anyone claims it, no, I'm not calling for anyone to do any harm to Jim. Do not harass them in any way. Pushback is okay, but remember to keep things civil. Keep this in mind as well. This is all while everyone would be in agreement about what the video started out with, that the harassment of the Monkey Island creator was abhorrent. Was Jim thinking that they had too much unity and had to find some wedge issue to divide the gamer base again? So much so that they had to use such strawmen and red herrings to make sure we were arguing with each other again, while Jim was clearly misrepresenting the argument for their own benefit because it didn't have an easy answer for the actual argument that was made. Not to mention the two situations are not really related to each other at all. There is a debate to be had about changing characters to appease Jim and Reset Era. There's no debate to be had about what happened with Ron Gilbert. No connection, but somehow Jim says there somehow is. If you want us to be on your side, you have to do much better than this, Jim. You need to start highlighting specific times that things like this happen, and not just put blanket statements on every one and thing. You're blaming the entire gaming community for a few bad apples, and then thinking that those apples that were Fuji instead of Red Delicious were also bad apples. You're not afraid to quote tweet those that call you out on Twitter, so why are you hesitating to put a name or face to those quotes you seemingly pulled? Is it because you don't want to advertise those people? Maybe, but you don't have any problem doing that on Twitter, so why are you having a problem here? And start acknowledging when gamers get it right instead of saying that they always get it wrong. Maybe if they see that you say when they did the right thing instead of only highlighting all the wrong they seemingly do, and to always put blanket statements and only think that the issue only has two sides or two possible reasons why someone might be for or against something, or somewhere in between even, maybe those drop in sub numbers you claimed only happened a year ago when you made a life-changing decision, and claimed that the drop of sub numbers could only have came from the make-believe opposition of your decision, not from any dip in quality of your content, and your other decision to only talk about one subject constantly every single week might come back up. Maybe admit that sometimes gamers do have good heads on their shoulders instead of being forever bitter about their very existence, and stop always believing they have some nefarious purpose behind anything they ever do or say. Secondly, stop whining about us calling you out on these things. We have the right to do so, and if you want us to stop calling you out, maybe progress back to an adult about these subjects and talk as if you want something done about them instead of only acting like an argument must be won. Stop trolling and taunting all of us and treat some of our pushback with some more respect than you currently do. Not everyone who pushes back on your takes is a right-wing, Trump-loving subhuman that just wants to insult your identity. Maybe they actually have a different take. Maybe sometimes it's best, Jim, if you just shut up for 2 minutes and listen to someone that might have a slightly different take than you do. Another newsflash, you're not always correct. And just because someone disagrees with you on the semantics and the specifics of a debate you have or take you have, doesn't necessarily mean they disagree with the fundamental points. Somewhere, you've lost the ability to differentiate between those two classifications of disagreements, and you need to relearn those things fast. And why not make this subject a separate video instead of trying to hide it in a video about the Monkey Island developer? Were you scared that those that knew you were full of it would call you out on it? So you just wanted those that would agree with you to comment to be allowed to comment? Maybe. I mean, we seemingly can't go to Jim Sterling subreddit and push back because of them not wanting posts or videos debunking you. Perhaps you're afraid of getting caught out on your videos. What did the Cammy outfit controversy have to do with the Monkey Island debacle at all? You had just about, if not everyone on your side with your take on the Monkey Island developer getting harassed. But you had to go for the alienation of people by bringing up an issue that shows you're educated well beyond your intelligence on it, as you seem to be on most things anymore. That's why people tune out, Jim. It has nothing to do with your transitioning. It has everything to do with you doing stuff like this. Stop alienating people and start thinking that there's more than two sides to these type of subjects, and you might see people who were on your side about the digital homicide stuff come back because they feel as though you're not blaming them for a few bad apples. Then again, I'm not going to hold my breath for you doing that, because this is Jim Sterling we're talking about. He can't get off the subject for 2 seconds. My name's JD Shadow, and that just happened.